I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. The 2 oldest were abused on a daily basis by the students and the teachers in the school that I was teaching in, until my principal's wife came to me at a teacher's meeting one day and said, "Jane," and she was teaching at the high school level, "you've got to get your kids out of this school. These teachers are trying to destroy your children." So we moved, and I didn't know how bad it had gotten for my kids until we had moved, and we were sitting around the table in the dining room one day, and I said, "Tell me what it was like for you kids, because I don't think I know." And then they started to tell me some of the things that had happened to them. And they had never told me those things while it was happening. I said, "Why didn't you tell me these things while they were happening? I would have done something about it." And Brian said, "You had it tough enough, Mom. We had to take care of it ourselves." At the age of 10, 12, 14, and 15, my kids had to learn to defend themselves against ugly racist behaviors from their peers and from the teachers of their peers who were hired to protect all children. I took the film that the CBC made in my classroom and I took it up to the hotel and showed it to my parents, just my mother and father. After it was over, my mother walked out of the room. My dad stood up, took his red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his bib overalls, blew his nose, wiped his eyes, and said, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." Anybody who criticizes this, what I do with children and adults, I just remember what my father said at the age of 60. "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." My sons will never have to say that, because I taught it to them from the day they were born. On 3 pages of this, you will find this: 70 faces. And under each of those faces is a number. Because we all have a number, our skin color has a number on the color wheel. I want the National Geographic magazine, that picture of all those different colored human beings with the numbers under them, I want that to be enlarged and hanging on every classroom, in every wall in every classroom, a wall in every classroom in the United States of America. I want these people to take away from them the knowledge that there's only one race and these black people were here first, and that I am just a fated member of the black race. There's one race, it's the black race. That's how we all started. So we need to get rid of those color groups. You can talk about color groups if you want to, but call them color groups, don't call them races, because they are not races. They are people of the same race who are different colors. We've got to get this nailed down now, because if we don't, life for pale faces is going to be extremely uncomfortable in the next 30 years.
Thank you all for being with us today. There is a need for a conversation, a deep conversation, about discrimination happening here on Long Island. The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, fights for just that, the advancement of colored people and against discrimination across the land.
For anyone who sees my work, that they are touched by it and encouraged to do their own work. I think Dr. King would ask us, what have we done lately? And so that should motivate us to continue in the struggle.
I am humbled as I stand before you tonight. I am so very thankful for this award. As a white woman, I have a responsibility to know my privilege and not to be an ally, but to be a constant energy of action to address the iniquity and the injustice that plagues our region like a cancer. And we live in a region that is one of the most segregated regions in the country, and we have a legacy of racism and hate guiding how we have been built. So we feel very strongly that we need to do everything we can to promote equity and to change that dynamic for the future.
My life began when I realized that my life is not about me. From the words taken from Tony Robinson, only those who have learned the power of sincere and selfless contributions experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment.
The NAACP stands for those who are able to be of service to others. That's what I believe.
I am unapologetically Black, and we have an obligation to make sure that people understand every time they see an individual, what does it mean to be a Black man, a Black woman? It is our obligation to teach.
The work that existed at the turn of the last century is work that still needs to be done in this century.
In this arena and atmosphere of divisive politics and everything else that's going on that divides us, we need something that's going to pull us together as opposed to pulling us apart.
I give honor and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and in the spirit of Him, I look to continue to serve my community as I go forward in my journey. Thank you. Anytime you're speaking with kids, whether it's spirituality, whether it's finance, whatever it is, they really don't care, how much you know until they know how much you care. And for one thing I've learned over the course of time is that be consistent, honor your word.
I want you all to hashtag Race to Speak Up and support me on my journey to educate, empower, and uplift, embrace, and impact people's lives for the better.
All kids should be treated equal. Everyone should be treated equal. And I know that I can help with them being treated equal so that they can get that, so that they can feel confident in themselves and so that they don't have to go through this bullying anymore.
This honor is for working with female offenders. It's an underserved population that has been victimized all through their lives, and they deserve the chance and they deserve the opportunity to change their lives.
I got a call, I knew nothing about it. I belong to the NAACP out east. So I'm saying, wait a minute, I'm out east, it's west. So what is it all about? I think it's great honor. Couldn't ask for nothing better. My mother is up there in heaven, my wife's up there in heaven. I'm sure they're beaming. And I've worked hard, but it's nice to be recognized when you're working.
Most of us who serve in security, protecting you at events like this, rarely get the recognition that they should or we should.
Been in the martial arts for 60 years. I believe that was the main reason why I'm here as a martial arts instructor, for having taught over 60 years in the New York area.
You can't receive an award like this without some help. You can't do this solo. So at this point, I want to thank everybody in this room that has helped me do the things that I've done.
You have to get the students engaged. Students primarily don't like to read, so we do a lot of actualization, and I kind of get them to read, and they don't realize they're reading, and they get into the information, and they get so deep into the information that they've learned something, and they'll walk away looking at you, and they'll say, I just learned something today.
I believe every one of us can do something in our lives to fight racism, to challenge white supremacy, and to promote social justice. We intend to, go beyond the campus itself and to the larger community and be national and international also.
Despite the advancements that our sisters and brothers of the African American community have made, still the bank of justice is bankrupt, especially for the Latino community, and we strive and we will continue that fight with our brethren of the African American community for the equality in politics, in education, in economics, in all aspects. God bless America. Thank you.
Joan Johnson was a pioneer. She helped to found this organization, the Islip-Smithtown branch of the NAACP. We are here because she was here.
It is very important to me that everyone remembers my mom and the good things that she did. I thank you for remembering her tonight and for allowing me to be here to accept this on her behalf. It means the world to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have worked for 4 decades with disenfranchised groups, people who have been unempowered to live a life of reasonable quality, and have taken up the torch to be their voice and try to rectify the many wrongs and pervasive stereotypes and prejudice they encounter daily. We're no longer the United States, we're the divided states. And whatever I can do to really raise my people and many different ethnic cultures and different religions that are being persecuted, that's my mission in life. That's how I want to finish out the rest of my life.
Thank you for inviting me here. It is without a doubt the greatest honor I have ever received. To be an old white woman and be invited to address the NAACP anywhere is absolutely remarkable. This is the second time this has happened to me, and I thank you for it.
That study that you did opened the eyes of professors from community colleges to Harvard and Oxford, Princeton and Yale. And because of that, we are a better human race. So thank you, Jane Elliott. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7th Annual Long Island Legacy Gala, brought to you by the Islip-Smithtown Branch NAACP. Thank you for letting us into your homes for our inaugural virtual gala, hopefully our last. Today's going to be a very quick show. Promise we're not going to hold you that long, but it's going to be very fun, not so interactive, but intuitive. So I ask you at this time, if your microphones are not muted, please mute your microphones. We also ask that you keep your cameras off during the Zoom presentation. Now, sit tight, get ready, we're gonna have a good time. Thank you.
Father, we give you glory, we give you praise, we give you honor, for this is the day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. We ask and we invoke your presence at this awesome gala. God, that we first of all thank you for the work, the tireless work, the ongoing work of the NAACP. If there was ever a time where we need champions for civil rights, warriors that will fight for their fellow man, the time is now. So we thank you for their longevity. We thank you for their perseverance. We thank you for their tenacity. We thank you for all those that are continuing and have supported this awesome work, this awesome agenda this year and the years before. We ask that you would increase them 1,000-fold. We ask that you will bless the efforts of the NAACP, that they will be successful, that we will be successful in our fight for civil justice, social justice, economic equality, lowering and taking away the disparity among our black and brown brothers and sisters as it relates to education, as it relates to healthcare, as it relates to ownership, as it relates to credit. In every area of our life, we pray that we will be successful in this fight. For you are with us. You are the voice of that which is unheard, and you are the defender of the defenseless. So thank you for using us in this great cause. We ask that you will bless this awesome and wonderful event this evening in Jesus' name. I am Bishop Edward Robinson, and I am honored to serve as the invocator for this evening.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with a harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Moss, and I'm the proud president of the Islip-Smithtown branch of the NAACP. I want to thank you for being here with us this afternoon. Thank you for supporting the educational work as well as the anti-discrimination work of our organization. We are experiencing a time in our lives like no other time before. COVID-19 has torn through our communities and our country. And for people of color, it's shown us that there are still racial disparities that we suffer from in our country. When it comes to our health, COVID-19 has certainly exposed the fact that we have some predispositions in our health that have led to higher rates of death amongst African Americans and Latinos. In terms of education, we now have to recognize that there are deep disparities in the way that education is given to communities of color. In terms of technology, COVID-19 certainly has exposed the fact that many communities of color do not have the same technological advantages that predominantly white schools have. So we definitely have been exposed and enlightened about the differences that still take place in our country. That being said, we must be more vigilant. We must pay attention. We must be present now more than ever. And certainly, God bless, after COVID-19, this crisis leaves us, we must return back to our normalcy, understanding that this new knowledge has been given to us. And to whom much is given, much is expected. That we are expected to take this knowledge and do better, do more and do better. And so I think it's so important that we be the change that we want to see in the world. If we see injustice, that we become justice. Each and every one of us in our surroundings can be the individual who makes a difference, who causes there to be a positive change. And so I encourage all of us to be the change that we want to see in our surroundings now, through all of this crisis that we're going through, and afterwards as well. Hopefully you will enjoy these presentations that we have today. Thank you again for supporting the Islip-Town branch of the NAACP. God bless.
Hi, I'm Dr. Errol Toulon Jr., and I'm the Sheriff of Suffolk County. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2021 NAACP Legacy Gala. I am honored to be part of this celebration and want to thank NAACP President Billy Moss and Linda Spar, the Freedom Fund Chair, for inviting me and for giving me the honor of being a Legacy Award recipient. I accept this award with deep appreciation, but also with some sadness, as we are missing our Sergeant Investigator Keith Allison, who is an integral part of this organization and the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. Keith embodied the spirit of the NAACP. He was a dedicated public servant and someone who worked every day to uplift those around him. My heart goes out to Brenda and Keith's entire family, his church family, and friends as we continue to feel this tremendous loss. It's fitting that today's keynote speaker is Yance Ford, and that today we also honor and pay tribute to the late and great Barbara Ford for her commitment to community service and human rights in the town of Islip. You know, I was a young boy who grew up in the South Bronx. My parents both were civil service workers and made sure that my brother and I had a great education, the best that they could afford. We worked very hard and we committed ourselves not only to our community but to our family and friends. I'm very happy and very honored to be the Sheriff of Suffolk County, as I have an opportunity now to actually give back to the members of the community that I see and work with every single day. I don't take this honor lightly, and I will continue to work hard to make sure that there's a commitment from the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office to not only work with our community members on the various issues that they're facing and confronted every day, but to make sure that they all feel safe. We still have a long way to go, but we have also come a long way, thanks in part to the work of the NAACP in Islip and across our great nation. Thank you for this great honor. God bless you, and God bless America.
Welcome back, and I want to take a moment of time to talk about two gentlemen who left us this year. Sadly, we lost Jerry Walkoff, who was a lifetime member of the NAACP. He was a philanthrope who always was supportive of our endeavors and our initiatives, and we will miss him greatly. We also lost Keith Allison. Keith Allison was an executive committee member of the NAACP. He was very active as a member for our back to school rallies. If you didn't know Keith personally, he was the guy who was on the grill. He was making all the food for our over 1,000 guests that we have every year at the back to school, stay in school rally. He actually was the keeper of our grills that we own as an organization, and always was there to lend a helping hand. I'm sad to say that he passed from complications of COVID-19 and was one of very few Suffolk County employees to die because of complications of COVID-19. And so I do want to take a moment of silence to remember Jerry Walkoff as well as Keith Allison. Our lives will not be the same without them.
Hello, my name is Brittany Antoine. I am a community organizer and activist. I would like to thank the Islip-Town branch NAACP for honoring me in this year's Long Island Legacy Gala. I would like to start off with a quote from the Honorable Ella Fitzgerald. "Just don't give up trying to do what you really want to do. Where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong." My love for community service comes from my parents. My mother, Michelle Napoleon, has been a social worker for over 30 years. She is who I get my hard work and selflessness from. My father, Ronald Antoine, is who I get my commitment to my community from. He is someone who will show up whenever you call, no questions asked. I am who I am because of you guys. So thanks, Mom and Dad. COVID-19 has affected everyone. While I know it's hard to find the positive during this pandemic, somehow, some way I did. With all of the injustices that have and are still occurring to our Black and brown people, I decided, as the late great John Lewis once said, never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble. Our Black lives matter. In addition, during this pandemic, I decided to join a grassroots organization called Uplift Our Towns, where we have been helping families in need. During the holiday season, through donations provided by various community members and partners in the Brentwood, Bayshore, and Central Islip area, we were able to feed 109 families and provide 165 kids with gifts from Santa. Because of this amazing team that I am a part of, we will continue to make a difference in this community. Lastly, to the young women watching this and feeling like time is passing you by, you're not sure what you want to do, how to do it, or even where to start, don't worry. One day you're going to wake up and it's going to be right in your face. We are all on this earth for a reason. It might have taken me a few years to find that reason, but I'm here, I have a purpose, and this is only the beginning. Thank you to my friends and family for always believing in me. And thank you to the Islip-Town branch NAACP for honoring me.
My name is Alan Singer. I'm a professor at Hofstra University. COVID-19 infection, mortality rates, unemployment and homeownership statistics, family wealth, traffic stops in Suffolk County, housing discrimination on Long Island, incarceration, school funding, student performance, all underscore that you continue to be two Americas, one affluent and the other struggling. The struggling America is disproportionately Black and Latino. On Thursday, March 14th, 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke at Grosse Pointe South High School in an affluent Detroit, Michigan suburb. The title of his talk was The Other America. Unfortunately, if Dr. King were still alive, he could give the same speech again today. More than 50 years later, the United States is still divided into two Americas, and those who question this division are heckled, including by outgoing President Donald Trump. The interracial Black Lives Matter movement, reminiscent of the 1960s African American civil rights movement, challenges racist policies, but in policing especially, but in a broader sense, is challenging all the racist policies that create two Americas. This effort can only succeed, as Dr. King insisted, if we discuss the race problem in the United States very honestly. These are Dr. King's words. There are literally two Americas. Every city in our country has this kind of dualism, this schizophrenia, split at so many parts, and so every city ends up being two cities rather than one. One America is beautiful for situation. In this America, millions of people have the milk of prosperity and the honey of equality. But there is another America. This other America has a daily ugliness about it that transforms the buoyancy of hope into the fatigue of despair. In this other America, thousands and thousands of people, men in particular, walk the streets in search for jobs that do not exist. In this other America, millions of people are forced to live in vermin-filled, distressing housing conditions where they do not have the privilege of having wall-to-wall carpeting, but all too often they end up with wall-to-wall rats and roaches. In this other America, thousands of young people deprived of opportunity to get an adequate education. Every year, thousands finish high school reading at a 7th, 8th, and sometimes 9th grade level. There are so many people in the other America who can never make ends meet because their incomes are far too low, if they have incomes, and their jobs are devoid of quality. And so in this other America, unemployment is a reality and underemployment is a reality. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for honoring me. But we are really all here to honor Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
There's a light in the darkness, though the night is black as my skin. There's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been. There's a cry in the distance. It's a voice that comes from deep down within. There's a cry asking why. I pray the answers up ahead, 'cause I know where I've been. There's a road we've been traveling, lost so many on the way, but the riches will be plenty, worth that price, the price we have to pay. Oh, dream in the future. There's a struggle yet to win. Use that pride in my heart, 'cause I know where I'm going. Yes, I do. I know where I've been. There's a road that we must travel. There is a promise yeah, worth the risk and the chances. Take a dream in the future. There's a struggle we have yet to win. Use that pride in our hearts to lift us up till tomorrow. Oh, sin still would be a sin. Lord knows I know where I've been.
Good afternoon, dear guests. I want to thank President William Moss and the Executive Committee and the Legacy Gala of the Islip-Town branch of the NAACP for this great honor, the Patriots Award that you have bestowed on me. I'm the son of immigrants, a Polish mother who lost most of her family in the Nazi regime and who met my father, a Spaniard, in France during World War II. Together they shared many life and death adventures, my mom in the French resistance, and my dad transporting phony documents at his peril to give to Jews in hiding to help keep them safe. After journeying to the New World and settling in New York when I was 5 years old, the seeds of their legacy gelled and began to ferment and solidify in me. As early as high school, I knew I wanted to become a psychologist after volunteering to work with special education children at a center for child development. I followed that dream and worked with disenfranchised patients in psychiatric hospitals and with minority children presenting with problems at schools in a private clinic in the Bronx. Throughout my studies and early career, I tried on many hats, but my interests always moved in the direction of promoting social justice and working with disenfranchised and unempowered people who often lacked a voice to be heard, becoming their voice and championing them. I was involved in several high-profile criminal evaluations. In one, I had the unique opportunity to travel to Cuba as part of my court-ordered examination of a defendant to learn about his background in preparation for trial. In another, I traveled to Puerto Rico to delve into the background of one of the co-conspirators of the New York terrorist trial. Despite my background in many forensic cases, when asked what gave me the greatest satisfaction in my work, I replied, helping abused and battered women seeking asylum to be allowed to remain here away from their victimizers. Most of my work presently involves patients who have sustained injuries, including occupational injuries, car accidents, victims of violence, and working with immigration cases. Many of these people faced formidable obstacles to their treatment and livelihood. I have held leadership roles in many professional associations where I sought to promote social justice, multicultural and diversity-based competence, and provide sponsorship opportunities and awards to students for their scholastic work and achievements. I sought to empower society through several fundraisers. One, to help the victims of the mass shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. Another, to help families with psychiatrically disabled children and loved ones. And another, to help the children and families separated through the zero tolerance policy. Most recently, my greatest effort in providing a service to the community has been in developing an internet TV show, the Dr. Roy Aranda TV show on Tribuna TV, that since August of 2018 has focused on many topics of interest to the community in hour-long shows twice a month with expert guests geared to educate and empower viewers. I want to acknowledge my consultant, Dr. Peter Canaris, and many of the guests from New York State Psychological Association for their contributions. Topics included racial violence and discrimination, LGBTQ issues, issues affecting veterans, Black Lives Matter, Hispanics facing social injustices, children separated from parents at the border, children and adult immigrants locked up at the border, ICE raids, minorities exposed to greater COVID contamination, minorities exposed to more dangerous situations with less pay and no health benefits at work, 9/11 survivors suffering years later from serious medical illnesses, struggling to obtain the care they need, having to plead with the government to extend benefits. The plight of dreamers, medically ill children with visas not being renewed facing deportation, a multitude of COVID-19 health and trauma-related issues, and the social and civil unrest that permeates the country. As we face a raging, seemingly out-of-control pandemic, the country is witnessing extreme divisiveness and unbridled violence pursuant to the recent national election and events unfolding on and since January 6, 2021. My fervent hope is that we come closer to reaching Martin Luther King's dream, whose birthday and legacy we celebrate tomorrow, January 18, 2021, in our ongoing journey towards social justice. Again, I am honored and most grateful for this award. Thank you.
We honor the life of Joycetta Pierce. Joycetta graduated from Bishop McConnell Memorial High School. She studied liberal arts at Adelphi University in Garden City. She is a former clerk at the Hanover Bank and a former accounting bookkeeper at the U.S. Maritime Administration. She's been a staff director for 9X, but we know her most importantly as a curator and executive director at the African American Museum in Nassau County. She is also the founder and executive director at the African Atlantic Genealogical Society. Please warmly join us in honoring Joycetta Pierce. We honor the life and legacy of Barbara Dunmore Ford. Barbara Dunmore Ford was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, the beloved daughter of late George and Earlene Dunmore. She married her grade school sweetheart, William Ford, in 1965, moving with him to Brooklyn, New York, to begin a prominent and accomplished career as an educational innovator. Mrs. Ford began her career with New York City public school system as an English teacher. Some 33 years later, she had served as assistant principal and principal of Brooklyn's Thomas Jefferson High School and the founding principal of Rosewood High School, a school for adjudicated women and girls that it housed on Rikers Island. Her career was accented with the design and implementation of numerous instructional programs that have supported the development of the children and greater educational community of Central Islip. Of noteworthy mention is her service as Deputy Parks Commissioner for the town of Islip, where she oversaw the renovation of the fields and courts of the Central Islip Recreation Center. Mrs. Ford earned her Bachelor of Arts degree at Benedict College in Charleston, South Carolina, and a Master of Science degree and a professional diploma in Education Administration and Supervision at Long Island University, C.W. Post College. Mrs. Ford was a valued member of the Central Islip community. A resident since 1972, she was an active participant in many organizations, of which there are too numerous to name. Dear to her heart, however, were her positions as usher at Hope Missionary Baptist Church, board member of the Central Islip Civic Council and co-founder of Central Islip Coalition of Good Neighbors. We will forever remember the contribution of Barbara Dunmore Ford. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Yance Ford. Yance Ford is an artist working in film based in New York City. His debut film, Strong Island, won a Sundance Film Festival Special Jury Prize and the Gotham Award for Best Documentary and the Black Film Critics Circle Award for Best Documentary. Strong Island was nominated for Best Documentary Feature at the 90th Academy Awards, where Ford made history as the first openly transgender director nominated for the Oscar. Strong Island won the Primetime Emmy for Exceptional Merit in Documentary Filmmaking. Ford is also a former series producer of the PBS documentary series Point of View. His curatorial work there was recognized with 5 Emmy Awards and 16 Emmy nominations. Ford is a MacDowell Fellow, a member of the Sundance Institute Collective, and was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2019. It is with great pleasure that we introduce to you Yance Ford, our keynote speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Yance Ford, and I'm honored to be with you today. My grandmother became a widow when her youngest child, my mother, was 2 years old. My grandfather died of an asthma attack because white staff at the closest hospital refused to treat him. Time is of the essence when you can't breathe, and in the time it took to get to the Black hospital, he could not be saved. My grandfather died because he lived in the Jim Crow South. My grandmother, his widow, persevered and made a life for herself and their 3 daughters. A life that set my mother on a 30-plus year path as an educator. They lived in a tight-knit community in Charleston. Every house on their street was a safe haven. Every adult watched over all the children. Stories from my mother's growing up years remind me of my own. The community where I grew up in Central Islip was an extended family. We were watched over and watchful. And my Cone Avenue family, to this day, is dear to me. Growing up, there was no such thing as a low-stakes argument. My brother, sister, and me could be fighting over what cartoon to watch, and my mother would cut it off with this simple fact, quote, "You don't fight each other, because when your father and I are gone, you will have each other. Save that fighting for someone else." Barbara Dunmore Ford was a woman who loved her children unconditionally, a promise she made to each of us early and often. Imagine then my fear when I knew I was gay. I did not wake up one day and decide to be gay. I did not wake up one day and decide to be transgender. One day I simply reminded myself that God does not make mistakes. I reminded myself that my parents, who had been together since grade school, taught me to love and respect myself. I remembered my parents' promise of unconditional love, and one day I came out to them. I remember the conversation vividly. Both my mother and father had many questions, and both of them were afraid for me. But their fear was very specific. My parents raised us to believe that we, all of us, are made in the image of God. They did not suddenly cast me out. they continued to see me as a child of God, brought into the world by them, but made in his image. My mother told me years later that it wasn't a choice. They loved me as much the day after I came out to them as they did the day before. Years later, my mother, in the face of murmurs in her church and community, cut her hair nearly as short as mine, and that Sunday said, "Anyone who does not accept my child has no place in my life." With her haircut, my mother turned her body into a clear statement. If there had ever been a doubt about where Barbara Dunmore Ford stood on LGBT folk in the Black community, she put it to rest. And I am grateful for her conviction, but not surprised. She loved her kids unconditionally and taught us that we, all of us, are made in the image of God. That is the legacy of Barbara Dunmore Ford. There are some in our community who react differently to their LGBT colleagues, children, neighbors, community members, or fellow organizers in Suffolk County. I am here as a humble messenger to remind the community I love that Black residents of the town of Islip who happen to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender deserve a place in the movement. Black LGBT folk deserve and must be included in the work to protect and defend our civil rights. It saddens me to learn that some in our community believe Black LGBT folk exist only because of outside influences or are an attempt to destroy the Black family. Nothing could be further from the truth. The protests of last summer, a majority organized by Black LGBT folk, prove that our notion of community is expansive and includes fighting for the lives and dignity of all Black people. And our history bears this out. Bayard Rustin, James Baldwin, Alvin Ailey, Barbara Jordan, Audre Lorde, Billy Strayhorn, Lorraine Hansberry, Langston Hughes, Bessie Smith, Alicia Garza, Lil Nas X, Janelle Monáe, Charles Blow, Jonathan Capehart. I could go on, but my point is this. From the beginning of the modern civil rights movement, LGBT folk have been at the forefront, fighting for Black America. How has this been forgotten? The words of James Baldwin, a Black gay man, are, to this day, used in defense of our people. Should we use his words, yet ignore the part of him that was as essential to him as his Blackness? Those who stormed the Capitol last week, those who are currently planning acts of violence, and who are working to oppress Black residents of the town of Islip, would be happy for us to carve our community into pieces. Those who would prefer our silent acceptance of oppression would be pleased if Black LGBT folk were excluded from the work of the NAACP of Islip, because they know a house divided cannot stand. Those who seek the destruction of our community would be happy to see us destroy ourselves. Turning your back on Black LGBT folk is the same as doing our opponents' work for them. We must resist this impulse with all our strength. We must resist this impulse with all our might. Barbara Dunmore Ford was raised a Baptist in the Jim Crow South. She went to church on Sunday mornings and Bible study Wednesday evenings. Barbara Dunmore Ford could have decided that what some people thought was more important than what her head, heart, and faith told her. But Barbara Dunmore Ford walked by faith. She walked by love, and she walked by my side until the last days of her life. Yes, I am lucky to have had her as my mother. but she was not a superhero. She was a woman who recognized that my godliness and her own were one and the same. She chose the path of love, knowing that God did not make a mistake when he made me. As you go forward into this year where so much needs to be done, I invite you to consider this. Black LGBT folk want nothing more or less than the Black community at large, to live their lives in full, with dignity and joy, free from discrimination, injustice, and fear. We are in this community. Please welcome us. Doing so will only make us stronger and more whole. Thank you for honoring the memory of my mother today and for allowing me to join you.
In closing, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the people who made this presentation and this event possible. Certainly, thank you, Yance Ford, for being our keynote speaker. You blessed us tremendously with your words of wisdom and kind heart. And we are eternally appreciative of your speaking with us today and becoming a friend of the Islip-Smithtown branch of the NAACP. I also want to thank the committee that put this together. Certainly Linda Spar, our committee chair for this event. Thank you so much for everything that you did to put this together. To Helen Moss and to Marie Nealon Hart, to Smiley Duran, our media specialist and extraordinaire. We thank you for doing this for the NAACP and for civil rights and human rights. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank the team of officers that helped to keep the Islip-Smithtown branch alive. Certainly our Vice President, Ed Grossi, our second Vice President, Michelle, with one L, Robinson, our third Vice President, Donovan Curry, our Treasurer, Helen Moss, our Assistant Treasurer, Camille Serrano, our Secretary, Doreen Glenn, and our Assistant Secretary, the illustrious Jessica Washington. Thank you for your partnership, and our officers are the people who make this organization run smoothly year-round. We are all volunteers in the NAACP, from the members who participate in our meetings and all the way to our committee members who craft legislation and are lobbying for all of our benefits. So it's so important that we stay connected and continue to support one another through these trying times, but also as we progress into the future, that we support one another in all of these endeavors to end discrimination and to make sure that we have civil rights and human rights for all. God bless everyone and Godspeed as we do the good work of ending discrimination.